Hello, my name is Jay, and I am a suburban Lyft driver. Hi, Jay. Um, I would like to welcome you all to my channel. This is my inaugural video. You may ask me, why ride sharing? Why is this the foot you want to jump in on? Well, first of all, it is something that impacts me personally heavily, as it does many, many drivers, both here in the Bay Area and across the world. Um, it is basically come to the forefront that there is a lot of injustice around this issue, and I don't think it's necessarily an intentional slight. I do think that it's something that there is a lot of misinformation out about, and a lot of just lack of information out. So this is my bid to raise awareness and to maybe get people in the know that might not have been in the know about these things. I have recently hooked up with a organization called Rideshare Drivers United. They are basically a San Francisco-based advocacy group. They are associated with Transport Workers Union. They are currently working with the cities of San Francisco, San Jose, LA, and San Diego. Excuse me, not San Jose currently, but that is in the works. In regards to enforcing workers' rights. First of all, I want to start off by emphasizing that the ride-sharing community overall has had a positive impact on the world. It was a good idea. Its time had come. You know, we have the technology, we have the workforce. We can make a better system, and to a large extent, we have. So I am not trying to negate that at all. What I am trying to do is to, again, inform the general public, and to bring up some suggestions that may, help the system to improve itself. So again, overall, whether you are, a rider, whether you are associated with one of the companies, whether you are a fellow driver, I thank you. You are doing a good thing here. Now I want to start with AB5. What most of you in California probably know what this is, at least, the outline of it. Those of you elsewhere, maybe not. But AB5 is a bill that was passed this year. It will go into effect in January of 2020. Basically what it means is that, among other things, I'm focusing on the ride-sharing community here, but among other things, rideshare drivers are going to be treated as employees and not contractors. That is the long and short of it. What that means is that basically they will be guaranteed minimum hourly wages. There will be tax withholding from their paychecks, which will also incidentally increase state revenue, because they will also be paying taxes to the state, which they should have been paying all along. Employees will get health benefits. Employees will get paid time off, unemployment benefits. So basically all the normal things that are expected of an employee in California, that are basic, workers' rights, will be now granted to rideshare workers. That is what the bill says. However, and this is a big but, the companies have stated they are not going to comply to this. Now, this is not a sustainable situation, obviously. The law is the law, and while they are spending tens of millions of dollars fighting this law, it's going to go into effect, and it's going to affect them. So whether they want to comply or not, sooner or later they are going to be made to comply, or they are going to be out of business. I'm not passing value judgments here. That's how the law works. You have to comply to it. So basically, let me break this down a little bit. For those of you not in the know, the current situation is that basically we're being treated as contractors, but we are being denied contractor rights. So basically, to unpack this a little bit, as a contractor, Um, well, okay, backing up here. Neither Lyft nor Uber, although I have heard, I have not verified that Uber is potentially changing this. But neither company reveals the details of the job to drivers beforehand. So we know a pickup location, and we know if the ride is more than 45 minutes. That is the extent of our knowledge. That's all we know. So basically, we are not told where we're dropping that passenger off, or even in what direction we're going. We're not told what sort of compensation we're getting for that ride. We're just told to get to the pickup point, basically, and a yes or no, basically. We can accept it or we cannot accept it, and then it will affect our acceptance rating, whatever that means. So there's not a lot of driver agency. There's virtually no driver transparency. You end up with drivers taking rides that will take them into locations that they don't want to go. This happens very frequently. It's something that I have to plan my days around because living here in the Bay Area, I could potentially be stuck behind hours of traffic at the end of the day, which I'm getting compensated zero for. So it is a big deal, at least here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So the official explanation for this is that they don't want drivers cherry picking, and that it will increase rider wait time. Let's unpack that a little bit. Okay, first of all, a contractor has every right to cherry pick. That's the nature of the job. That's what contractors do. It's in the word contract. Webster calls this a binding agreement between two or more persons or parties. What this entails is that there is terms to this contract. You know, having worked in the solar industry for several years, I know what this entails. I've dealt with 1099 contractor work, which is what we're classified as a 1099 contractor currently. I know how this works. And, you know, basically, if somebody comes to us as a solar company, hypothetical situation here. Somebody comes to us, they said, I have this unspecified amount of work I need done to my place. I'm going to pay you whatever I think is right when the job is done. Is this a contract you would take? Is this a contract any contractor in their right mind would take? No, it's not. It's a bad contract. But it is the status quo for Lyft and Uber drivers. They're taking 10, 20 of these things a day, and they don't know where they're going or what they're getting for it until they've actually dropped the rider off. Now, this is not right. You know, I don't mean to be belligerent here. I don't mean to be combative, but I mean, I have to call a spade a spade. You know, legally, if you're going to treat us as a contractor, you treat us as a contractor. You give us the information that we need to make an informed decision before we accept the ride. Let me find my place here. It's worse than this. There are situations, and this happens to me probably 5 or 6 times a day, if not more. I'm not even given a choice to accept the ride. When I'm in a ride with Lyft, stuff gets added onto my queue. I don't even know where I'm going to pick them up until I've finished the next ride, and then at that point it is a situation where I have to physically cancel the ride if I don't want to do it. And, you know, I mean, this is not treating me as a contractor. This is treating me as an employee. And if you're treating me as an employee, and this goes for any ride-sharing driver, if you're treating them as employees, you should be compensating them as employees, giving them their basic employee rights as AB5 is trying to bring into effect. This is a real problem. Basically, so let me go to wait times, which is their other argument. Rider wait times, you know, basically the idea here being that if you give drivers all the information up front, that they will then pick and choose the rides they want to take. You know, people that are going to unpopular destinations are going to end up, having riders not accept their rides. And yes, to an extent, this is true. But you need to look at the other side of the coin here. If you're not giving the drivers the information up front, what is happening, and I hear these stories all the time, what is happening is then that the driver goes to the pickup location, takes 10, 15, 20 minutes of their time and of the rider's time, shows up at their doorstep, finds out what the destination is, and then cancels. Now you have just wasted 10, 15, 20 minutes both of the rider's wait time and of the driver's time and gas money and various other expenses that go to getting to that location, wear and tear on the vehicle, what have you. You have not decreased the rider's wait time at all. You've increased it at that point. So this is not a valid argument in my mind and in the mind of many rideshare drivers. It is just an excuse for not giving us the proper terms of the contract. Now to move a little bit beyond AB5, I want to go a little bit into my personal ride-sharing philosophy here, and I think this is something that is shared, again, by a lot of the community, not unanimously, but definitely I've talked to some that feel likewise. I am a huge fan of driving locally, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more of that from me in the future. But the reason that I'm a fan of that is that it promotes safety, efficiency. It means less empty cars driving back from places they didn't want to go in the first place. It means less emissions. It also basically, you get locations faster. You know the roads. You know the shortcuts. You are in a better headspace. You're calmer. You're more apt to polite conversation and just the things that are expected of a good rideshare driver. You can better provide your services if you're driving locally, and I think riders appreciate that. I know I do. But basically, the existing system makes that a hard thing to do. It's not an impossible thing to do, and there are definitely some tips and tricks I will be sharing with you in videos in the future of how to do this and how to stay relatively local and still make the system work for you. The existing system, which unfortunately is not apt to change even here in California for some time. So this is especially true, that this is a problem. When riders are going into congested areas, and I have spent hours in traffic, hours with no rides en route, and this is all wasted time and vehicle expenses with zero compensation. It's a problem. It goes both ways. I've recently talked to a gentleman who is in the city, and he has the same issue coming to the East Bay where I am. He doesn't know the roads. It doesn't feel comfortable, and it's a lot of time getting back home to his wife and family. So that's where we are on that. So I think, and this is probably repeating myself here, I think the solution to all this is transparency, and it's not a hard thing for the companies to implement. It's not a thing that's going to cost them any. Matter of fact, if anything, it's going to get them a little bit more income, because basically their income is based on the amount of drivers on the road. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you are a rideshare driver, you are in an immensely powerful situation. If we work together, we have the potential to bring some very real change because they depend on us. Without us, the rideshare companies are nothing. If we work together, we can definitely enforce some of these things. So basically, transparency with a few simple changes to the apps. You can let the driver know ahead of time precisely where they're going, precisely what they're getting paid for that ride, and then let them make an informed decision of a ride that they can be comfortable and confident in, knowing that, their work is being properly compensated. The status quo, however, is these companies are spending literally tens of millions of dollars fighting this legislation. They have stated publicly they will not comply to the law when it goes into effect. This is not skirting legality. That's expected of any big company. This is flagrantly breaking it. And it will not stand. It is not right. So the question arises, why do they do these things? Why do they put themselves in this position where they are, losing public support, losing rider support, losing driver support? The bottom line is the bottom line. It is true that the businesses are in trouble. They are not pulling in very much profit margin. And so it can be, I'm sure for them, a kind of scary situation, and they kind of go into defense mode, I'm sure, try to, clamp down on their losses, and that's understandable. It's expected of any business. I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is how they're doing that. So the core problem here is that the ride-sharing industry is based on an unrealistic business model. That is the business model that treats an employee as a contractor, treats an employee as a contractor when it benefits the companies and doesn't give them basic contractor rights. It's essentially having their cake and eating it too. And this is the way the system has been from the get-go. So when the original business modeling was going on with this, that's how the prices were set. That's how, the plan was made. And now they've, and of course they undercut the cab companies. That was the whole concept. Now they've run into a situation where there is an expectation that the prices will be what they are. So if prices go up, particularly if they go significantly up, there will be an uproar about it. So that money has got to come from somewhere that they're going to be paying into employee benefits and taxes, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that their solution has been, okay, let's spend a few million here to cut those losses rather than having to comply with the law and, spend the money there. But basically, this is just a basic business problem. If you have financial troubles, you need to cut your spending. You need to increase your income. Now, it's easier said than done on both of those things, I realize. But just as an example on cutting spending, those tens of millions of dollars, and I think the last figure I heard was 90 million that have gone into fighting AB5, that is all potential profit. That is all money you don't need to spend. Incidentally, they are, I'll get into this later actually. Now, right now, that's money that could be profit that is not profit. Their internal marketing to drivers can easily be cut. Actually, let me touch on this now. They have been trying to conscript drivers, trying to convince them to fight this law for them. And the basic argument being that if this law goes into effect, you're going to lose control over where you drive. You're going to lose control over when you drive. And this is absolutely untrue. It's not in the law. There's nothing in that law. The law merely states that we're going to be treated as employees, not contractors. Nothing in the law will force these things to happen. What may force these things to happen is the companies themselves. So those of us in the know look at this argument and we say, what we hear is, fight this law so that we don't do these things to you. And yes, it's silly. It's funny if you look at it from a third-person perspective, but it is a serious issue. It is a threat. It is saying that if we don't get our way, then we are going to make conditions unfavorable for you. And that is going to affect everybody. It's going to affect riders because drivers are going to stop doing it. They're going to get themselves off of the road. You will see more strikes, probably. Yeah, it's so. Yeah, don't believe the hype. Don't believe all the misinformation out there that, this is going to limit driver freedoms. The only thing it does is it takes certain driver freedoms and it puts them in the hand of the ride-sharing companies. So if the ride-sharing companies decide to abuse those freedoms, that is their issue, not the law's issue. So, win or lose, trying to bring this to a conclusion because this has gone longer than I thought it would. I'll be content either to be given full legal rights as a contractor or full legal rights as an employee, as any other contractor or any other employee in the state of California has. Currently, we're not, and that doesn't stand to change because the companies are not complying. What really we need to do here is find an equitable solution to this. As I said, you can expect driver strikes, but realistically, they'll likely be ineffective, as it's difficult to implement across the board because there's so many drivers and there's so many new ones signing on that don't know about the unions out there and organizing. And again, Rideshare Drivers United, I will put the link in the description here. I encourage any drivers out there to check them out, and riders, concerned third parties, etc., etc. But ultimately, probably what it's going to come down to is activism on the riders' part, because that's their bread and butter. Their income is based on the riding community. While the drivers do hold a certain amount of power in that they can choose to work or not work, ultimately, who they're going to listen to is the riders. So if you are a rider and you are concerned about these issues, I encourage you to reach out to your ride-sharing companies, to reach out to your legal, your government, your councils, and try to make some change in this. Yeah, it's inconvenient. I know it's time spent that could be spent elsewhere. But ultimately, even if it comes down to full-out boycott, it's not like you don't have other options. Taxis are still out there. Public transportation is still out there. It's inconvenient. You'll end up spending a little bit more. But, if these are things that concern you, then maybe that's something you're willing to do. So speaking to the riders, as I am for the moment, I would urge you to do your part with the existing system. And this is not to shame any of you that are not doing this. This is not saying that this is something you have to do. This is just my suggestion. You can put in in the pickup location notes or in a text to the driver, tell them where you're going. You don't have to get ultra specific, but, if you're leaving town, let them know what city you're going to. And that way they can make that informed decision. They still won't know what they're getting paid for the ride, but at least they'll know where it's taking them. And I would encourage you to try this out, particularly if you're taking longer rides into congested areas. See how it affects your wait time. See if I'm right. See if this will actually reduce the amount of time that you're spending waiting for drivers that then cancel on you because they don't want to go where you're going. And thank you for those of you that already do this. This is not my idea. This is something that I have had happen to me and rejoiced because it was a godsend. And I've ended up taking people places I didn't want to go just because I appreciated them putting the notes in there. So for those of you that do, again, thank you. Speaking to the ride-sharing companies directly here, if you're listening, this needs to stop. Stop spending millions fighting labor laws and comply with them instead. this has brought positive change in many major industries, and it can bring positive change to this one. So for everyone, I want to thank you for watching. I want to, this is not the norm for me. I'm not a political commentator. This is just an important issue to me, and this is something that I think needed to be done in a timely fashion. But I do want to give you a little bit of information about what you can expect on my channel. I'll be doing both, stuff for ride-sharing drivers, tips and tricks, and I'm a musician, and I'm working on my production skills, so I am going to be working on some parodies, some other musical stuff, probably some gear demos. I do guitar electronics, and I may be showing you some of those. General geekiness. I do D&D. I do gaming online. So be on the lookout for those if those are things that interest you. Definitely, if you found this video informative, I encourage you to hit the like button. If you are interested in any of these other things or in more ride-sharing tips, then I encourage you to subscribe. And definitely, I welcome any comments below. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.